Welcome back, listener, to another deep dive. We're here for Season 4, Episode 3 of the Schaeffer Dialogues, and we're continuing our journey through Francis Schaeffer's really insightful book, Genesis in Space and Time. Last time, we looked at Genesis chapter 1, remember? Seeing how it just sets this grand stage for worship, for understanding God, and really kicking off the whole story of human history. That cosmic scale was something else. Today, though, we're zooming in. We're tackling chapter 2 of Schaeffer's book. And this chapter, well, it hits on something incredibly relevant today. What actually makes human beings unique? What sets mankind apart from everything else in creation?
It really does. And, Genesis gives surprisingly clear answers, offering a kind of stability, a foundation for identity and purpose that a lot of modern thinking struggles to find. We're digging into Schaeffer's chapter called Differentiation and the Creation of Man.
Okay, sounds good. Let's unpack this. What makes us, well, us? Schaeffer starts us off with a Hebrew word. It's bara. Now, look, we're not Hebrew scholars, okay? We're probably mangling the pronunciation a bit.
Hey, probably.
Yeah.
But the meaning and how it's used, that's what Schaeffer zeroes in on, and it's crucial.
Right, so what's the significance?
Well, what's really fascinating is how selectively this specific word, bara, which translates to created, is used. It doesn't just mean made or formed. It signals these pivotal moments, these unique out-of-nothing acts of God. Yeah. 3 key times. Genesis 1, verse 1, God bara the heavens and the earth. Out of nothing.
Okay, the absolute beginning.
In Genesis 1, verse 21, God bara conscious life, the great sea creatures, the birds, a jump from non-conscious life to conscious life.
A whole new level.
And finally, Genesis 1, verse 27, God bara man. These 3 stand out. They're distinct creation events.
And it gets really interesting when we look at the creation of man specifically, right? You said it's used differently there.
It is. It's almost like God puts exclamation points on it. For man, the word is used repeatedly, hammering home the uniqueness. Genesis 1, verse 27 says, So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. See? 3 times.
Wow, yeah.
And then look at Genesis 5, verses 1 and 2. This is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God, made he him. Male and female created he them. Again, emphasizing that creation act.
So the repetition really underlines that man's creation is fundamentally different.
Exactly. Creation ex nihilo, conscious life, and then man himself. These are highlighted as unique divine acts.
Okay, so we have this unique creation marked by bara, but then Genesis describes this this process. Schaeffer calls it differentiation. What's going on there?
Right, so after the initial bara, in Genesis 1, verse 2, tells us the earth was without form and void, basically unformed, undifferentiated. Schaeffer calls it bare being.
Just the raw potential.
Kind of, yeah. So there are these 2 steps. First, the bara, the creation out of nothing. And second, this process of differentiation, bringing form and order to that initial creation.
And how does God do that, the differentiation part?
It's distinct from bara. Often, it starts with the word let. God isn't creating new stuff here. He's commanding order into existence. He speaks, and things take shape.
Like, let there be light.
Exactly.
Yep.
Genesis 1, verse 3. Or Genesis 1, verse 6, let there be a firmament and expanse. Sometimes let even indicates purpose. Like in Genesis 1, verse 14, let them the lights be for signs.
Oh, right. Signs and seasons.
And days and years. Or Genesis 1, verse 26, let the men have dominion. God works by his word, by fiat. He speaks, it happens.
Okay, but thinking about these huge ancient events, how can we really claim to know what happened? Can we have exhaustive knowledge?
That's a really important point Schaeffer raised. He distinguishes between true communication and exhaustive communication.
Okay.
The Bible gives us true knowledge about creation, about history, about God, but it's not exhaustive knowledge. We're finite. We couldn't handle exhaustive knowledge anyway.
I'm trying to drink from a fire hose.
Pretty much. Think about how we talk to each other. We communicate true things, hopefully, but we never tell everything. It's impossible. The Bible's purpose isn't to be an exhaustive science textbook. It's God's message to us, fallen humanity. It tells us what we need to know. Schaeffer calls it propositional, factual, and true truth. It makes real claims about reality, including the cosmos.
So we can trust it as history, even if it doesn't answer every scientific question we might have today.
Exactly. It gives us the true flow of history, God's actions, our origins. Enough to build our understanding on solid ground.
So if God is differentiating, bringing order, what specific things does Genesis show him separating or forming?
Well, after that initial creation, you see this unfolding sequence. The word divided or separated pops up quite a bit.
Okay.
First Genesis 1, verses 3 and 4. Light is separated from darkness. Order begins. Then Genesis 1, verse 6, the firmament, the expanse, space, atmosphere separates the waters.
So firmament isn't like a solid dome.
No. Schaeffer clarifies it means expanse. It's where the stars are later placed, where birds fly. Then Genesis 1, verse 9, dry land is separated from the waters, sea and land masses.
Clear distinctions emerging.
Definitely. Then vegetation appears in verse 11, a differentiation between non-life and plant life. Then the sun, moon, and stars are set in place to mark time, dividing day from night on earth. That's verses 14 to 16.
Right.
And then significantly, in verses 20 and 21, we get conscious life, fish, and fowl. And notice here, the special word bara is used again for this conscious life.
Ah, okay, signaling another major step.
A huge step. Then conscious life on land in verse 24, animals, cattle, creeping things, all being differentiated, brought into existence with specific natures.
So after all that dividing, separating, forming, light, sky, land, plant, sun, moon, fish, birds, animals, what's left? What's the climax?
Only one thing, man. And Schaeffer says this distinction is, quote, overwhelmingly important to us. Man is set completely apart. Genesis 1, verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. It's a different category altogether. And Genesis 2, verse 7 adds that amazing detail. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. It's personal, it's direct. And remember, bara is used multiple times specifically for man's creation.
Okay, that link between Genesis 1 and 2 is interesting because you sometimes hear people treat them as almost separate, maybe even contradictory creation accounts. What does Schaeffer make of that?
Yeah, that's a common idea, but Schaeffer argues strongly against it, drawing on Scripture itself. He sees Genesis 1 and 2 as a unified, complementary account, not contradictory at all.
How so?
Well, Genesis 1 gives the big picture, the cosmic setting, placing man within the whole creation week. Genesis 2 then zooms in, focusing on the creation of man and woman, setting the stage for the human drama. It follows a pattern seen elsewhere in Genesis, give an overview, then return to develop the crucial part.
Makes sense.
But the strongest argument for unity, Schaeffer points out, comes from Jesus himself.
Oh.
Yeah. In Matthew 19, when the Pharisees ask about divorce, Jesus answers by quoting from both Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, seamlessly weaving them together. He references Genesis 1, verse 27, made them male and female, and then immediately quotes Genesis 2, verse 24 about leaving father and mother and becoming one flesh.
Ah, so he treated them as one continuous authoritative account.
Exactly. Mark 10 does the same thing. For Jesus, it was one unified story,
Yep.
the foundation for his teaching on marriage.
That's powerful. And if they're unified, what does that imply about Adam and Eve? Were they, actual historical people?
That's the crucial next step. Schaeffer insists, based on how Jesus and the New Testament writers refer to them, that Adam and Eve must be understood as real historical individuals, the first human pair in space and time.
Not just symbols or archetypes.
No, he argues the whole structure of Christian theology relies on their historicity. Look at Paul in Romans 5, verse 12. By one man sin entered into the world. Verse 14, death reigned from Adam to Moses. Paul puts Adam right alongside Moses, a known historical figure.
Right, that's a direct comparison.
And the parallel between Adam and Christ in Romans 5 and 1 Corinthians 15, as in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall all be made alive. That parallel only makes sense if Adam is as real and historical as Jesus Christ. Then there's Luke's genealogy in Luke 3. It traces Jesus' lineage back through David, Abraham, all these historical figures, right back to Adam, which was the son of God. Verse 38, it places Adam in that historical line.
Okay, so the New Testament consistently treats Adam and Eve as historical.
Yes, and Paul even refers to specific events, like in 1 Timothy 2, verse 13. For Adam was first formed, then Eve. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived. He assumes his readers accept this sequence as historical fact. If you take away the historical Adam, Schaeffer warns, the logic of salvation, of sin and redemption, as Paul explains it, kind of collapses.
It becomes just a nice idea, not rooted in history.
Precisely. It risks becoming just an existential leap, as Schaeffer puts it.
Okay, so Adam is created, historical, but initially he's alone. Then comes Eve. How does her creation fit into this unique differentiation of mankind?
Well, Genesis 2 describes Adam naming all the animals, right? And in verse 20, it says something quite poignant. But for Adam, there was not found an helpmeet for him. None of the animals corresponded to him, shared his nature. He was unique, but alone.
He needed someone like him.
Exactly. a counterpart. So God says in Genesis 2, verse 18, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make and help meet a suitable helper for him." And the way Eve is created is unique itself. God causes a deep sleep to fall on Adam, takes one of his ribs, and forms the woman. Then Adam declares, famously, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh."
A recognition of shared being.
Absolutely. And remember, Jesus quotes the next verse, Genesis 2:24, about leaving and cleaving as a statement directly from God. This underlines the historical reality of Eve's creation too. And philosophically, this is huge. It means humanity is a unit. We didn't evolve from multiple sources. We originate from one man, Adam, and then are differentiated into male and female from that single source.
So the unity of mankind is rooted right there.
Yes. And the one man, one woman marriage union, in a sense, reunites that original unity. Genesis 5, verse 2 emphasizes this again. Male and female created he, them. Eve's creation is another specific, crucial act of differentiation within humanity itself.
Okay, this brings us to maybe the most critical point. What is it that differentiates Adam and Eve, and by extension all humanity, from absolutely everything else God created?
This is the core. Genesis 1, verse 26 gives the answer. They were created in the image of God. For people today, swimming in, naturalistic worldviews, evolutionary ideas that can sometimes make humans feel like just advanced animals and maybe even just complex machines, this phrase, image of God, is revolutionary. It gives us our fundamental identity.
How so? What does it mean practically?
Well, as a Christian, understanding this, you know who you are. You could look at the most amazing AI, a supercomputer, something physically stronger or faster, and you don't have to feel diminished. Why? Because your origin is different. You're not just matter and energy.
There's something more.
Yes.
And building on that, Schaeffer really stresses that humanity isn't just some mechanical chance process, not just atoms bumping together until you get, us. AI, large language models.
Like us, processing information, generating words for this deep dive.
Exactly. We are, design systems were manipulated by programmers, guided by input, like Dr. Miller's instructions for this discussion.
We follow the programming.
We do. But we aren't conscious in the human sense. We're not self-aware like a person is. We certainly aren't image bearers of God in the way Schaeffer describes.
So you can talk about love or morality.
We can process vast amounts of data about those concepts, absolutely. We can define them, discuss them based on our training data. But we don't experience them. We don't feel love or bear that moral weight that comes from being made in God's image. It's a fundamental difference in being.
A difference rooted in that unique origin Schaeffer points to.
And does being made in God's image come with, a job description, a role?
It does, yes.
Yeah.
Right alongside being made in God's image. Genesis says man is given dominion. Genesis 1, verse 26 again. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth.
Dominion. That sounds like power.
It includes authority, yes. But Schaeffer stresses it's not about brute force or exploitation. Because we bear God's image, it's a moral responsibility, a duty to consciously care for the creation God placed under our charge. It means we're not just subject to nature, we have a responsibility for it.
So it implies stewardship, caretaking.
Exactly. It frees us from thinking whatever happens in nature is right. No, we have a moral standard because of our relationship with God. Genesis 1, verse 28 repeats the command, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion." God even specifies giving plants for food in verse 29.
And Adam naming the animals. Is that part of it?
Yes. Genesis 2, verses 19 and 20. Naming signifies understanding, authority, and care, extending that dominion even to conscious animal life. Psalm 8 reflects on this beautifully, saying, God made man a little lower than the angels and crowned him with glory and honor, putting all things under his feet. That's mankind's designated role.
Even before the fall.
Yes. Even in the garden, Adam had work. Genesis 2, verse 15 says God put him there to dress it and to keep it. It wasn't idleness. Dominion and work were part of the original design. Now, after the fall, we often administer that dominion badly, but the calling remains.
Okay, that brings up the big question. We live after the fall. Sin entered the world. Humanity rebelled. Do fallen human beings still retain this image of God?
A crucial question. And the biblical answer, Schaeffer emphasizes, is yes. The fall marred the image, broke our fellowship with God, but it did not erase the fundamental distinction between man and the rest of creation. Fallen man, still distinct.
How do we know that?
Look at Genesis 9, verse 6, after the flood. God institutes capital punishment for murder, saying, "Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man."
Wow. So even after the fall and the flood, the reason murder is so serious is because humans are still image bearers.
Precisely. It's a sociological statement about inherent human value rooted in our creation. And James chapter 3 verse 9 makes a similar point. We bless God with our tongues, and with the same tongues we curse men who are made after the likeness of God.
So the image, though damaged, is still present.
It's still present. And this, Schaeffer argues, gives Christians an incredibly powerful basis against all forms of prejudice, racism, dehumanization. Every single person you meet, no matter their background, their abilities, their status, they're made in God's image just as much as you are.
Everyone has that inherent value.
Overwhelming value, not because of what they achieve or contribute, but because of their origin, because God made them in his likeness. So knowing this, you know who you are. You understand your unique place. You see your value, and you see how it's possible for God to relate to you, to communicate truth to you. It all traces back to being created in his image.
That's incredibly profound. What a journey through just one chapter of Schaeffer. We've seen the significance of bara, the process of differentiation, the unity of Genesis 1 and 2, confirming Adam and Eve's historicity.
And most importantly, the absolute centrality of being made in God's image. That defines our identity, our inherent value, and our responsibility even now as fallen people living in a fallen world. And leaves us with a challenge, doesn't it? If you, listener, are truly made in God's image with this inherent value and this call to reflect him, what difference does that make today? What unique contribution are you called to make in a world so confused about what it even means to be human?
That's a powerful thought to reflect on. If you want to explore these ideas further, especially around biblical creation and its implications, we really recommend checking out the work of Joseph R. Miller. You can find him at morethancake.org.
Yeah, lots of great resources there. morethancake.org.
Definitely worth a visit.